Someone asked if I would try to share how I managed to have a decent marriage when we both have attachment trauma, relational trauma, cptsd, and when I have multiple types of CSA trauma. In hanging out in some like CSA survivor type groups, like I definitely see that some people like really struggle with romantic relationships or kind of like opening up to men or things like that, and I think like that totally makes sense. My guess is that some people traumatically couple the male gender with their CSA trauma, which I don't think anybody chooses. So like, I get that if that is how your brain process things. My guess is that the reason that didn't happen for me was because my dad and my brother, like my brother that's like 15 years older than me, were both like solid men in my life as a kid. So while I did have a lot of trauma that was caused by men, especially in like the like sexual realm, I also had a couple of like relatively healthy relationships with men, especially in that way that like there wasn't any like anything creepy in those two male relationships. And so I think my experience just like kind of made it clear that like it wasn't like a male problem, it was something more complex than gender. My husband and I both grew up in families with emotional immaturity and different types for sure, but like we both definitely have emotional neglect and attachment trauma, different forms of enmeshment in our families. So there was a lot of skills that we did not have when we started dating. We started dating young, we've been together a long time. And so there is a lot that we've had to figure out together. And I'm not trying to say that we have like a super, like a perfectly healthy relationship by any means. But I do feel like we have done a lot of work, and I'm really proud of where we're at. And I was like thinking like before this video, like how can I like be for sure that I'm not just like deluding myself on this? And two things came to mind. One was I had found my individual therapist and was working with them for several months, and my husband, his name is Ryan, had tried a few therapists and was definitely making some progress, but was still kind of thinking that he hadn't found the ideal therapist for him. And I mentioned that to my therapist, just kind of venting, not really thinking anything more of it. And my therapist said that if Ryan was interested, that they would consider being his therapist. And I said, oh, I thought you couldn't do that. And they said, well, it really just depends on if there's like a conflict of interest. And so if there's a lot of conflict in a marriage, then then one therapist wouldn't want to see both spouses. But that just from seeing me and the way that I like talked about my relationship and Ryan, they felt that we were healthy enough that they could see both of us. And so that's something that I think is kind of feels like evidence to me that we are fairly healthy. The other thing is our couples therapist just like complements our relationship a fair amount. But specifically the thing that he said that has stuck with me is that we both definitely have insecure attachments based on our like primary caregiver relationships, but that he sees us as having earned secure attachment, meaning we have gotten our relationship to a place with each other that we are primarily secure. So that doesn't mean that we don't still have insecure attachment parts. We both have like some anxious attachment and some avoidant attachment, and we both sometimes get those triggered within our relationship, but kind of our like baseline, like our day-to-day, most of the time we are in a secure attachment place with each other. And he said that like quite early on, like that wasn't something that we earned in therapy, like it was something we had already earned when starting therapy. But when I try to think about like what has made that possible despite like our lack of like conflict resolution skills and like communication skills and things that we didn't get in childhood. Honestly, early on when we were dating, we were both very conflict avoidant, and so we avoided being harmful to each other by just not arguing about things, but that's also not healthy. Like, you need to talk about problems if they're ever going to get better, and if you're not talking about things, then things are being suppressed, and that's unhealthy. But I think kind of by default, we both, because we didn't know how to have healthy disagreements or how to like negotiate or things like that, and we both kind of thought that disagreeing would turn into a fight, like a nasty fight, like mistreatment, because of our childhood experiences. We both loved each other enough that we tried to avoid that. But then also we got to a stage where that wasn't working and things needed to be addressed, and we kind of just realized, like, oh, we can talk about this and not insult each other and not scream at each other and degrade each other, and we neither of us have to like walk away feeling like one of us won and the other one lost. Like, kind of that idea of we can look at the problem as the problem and try to resolve it together. Conflict is still triggering for me. It's still like my nervous system still thinks that if he's upset with me or annoyed by me or anything like that, that there's like a tiger in the room. But it's gotten better with practice, just through practicing trying to have hard conversations, both of us trying to be respectful to each other. If one of us was too upset to discuss things, we would delay it until we felt reasonably calm. Honestly, I think in part, our traumas have helped with our relationship. I really didn't have a really close, really safe relationship with anybody prior to him, and I was kind of used to not feeling seen and kind of profound emotional neglect. And he amazed me with how much he just kind of naturally saw me and naturally noticed me and wanted to know if I was really okay, and didn't just kind of buy into the "oh, I'm fine" thing like most people do. And I realize now that that was his own trauma. Like, he was really, really good at reading people, takes too much responsibility for other people's moods, which isn't a great thing, but at the same time, it was helpful for me to see that he saw me and that he wanted to know what was going on with me, and that was a safe thing, that it wasn't dangerous to open up to him. And I think there was sort of some versions of that was existing on his side too. When things were bothering him, so he had trauma of kind of feeling like he didn't have space to have his feelings, or to like not have his triggers stepped on. And so I like kind of shut down when people are upset, and like naturally give space and kind of become avoidant. And so the fact that I would back off if he was like grumpy, for example, felt safe to him, so that he didn't like feel smothered. And so to some degree, like, our traumas kind of like danced in like a good way, at least good to some degree. Like, obviously some of that is what we're trying to heal now. I definitely think that when you have trauma, you can like be with somebody who has trauma and like triggers you in all the worst ways, or sometimes your traumas can sort of kind of twist in still not healthy but less unhealthy ways. Another big one was, so I fawn a lot and was not good at all at advocating for myself or setting boundaries, and he was always very aware of that I wasn't good at advocating for myself, and he just naturally cared enough about my actual comfort to look out for signs of discomfort in me, and would avoid doing things that seemed to make me uncomfortable, even if I didn't say like, I don't like that or don't do that or whatever. So he kind of protected my boundaries for me, which shouldn't have been his job and isn't healthy. But I talk too much, so I'm out of time.